Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nos programmes offrent plusieurs langues. Veuillez visiter suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Nuestros programas ofrecen varios idiomas. Visiten suprememastertv.com/schedule.
Műsoraink sok nyelvet tartalmaznak. Kérjük, tekintse meg itt suprememastertv.com/schedule.
So all of the protocols were met, but it was a place of violence. And it was violence being enacted upon animals and their lives being taken before they could live the life that they obviously would have rather chosen to live.
Supreme Master Ching Hai gratefully present the Honourable Mark Pearson, the Shining World Leadership Award for Compassion. With humble gratitude, praise and love in God's mercy, may you be protected as you try to protect the innocents. For the love of animals, Australia's The Honourable Mark Pearson, Vegetarian, Part 1 of 3. Continue watching to find out more.
Sveiki means hello in Latvian. I'm Elita. The people of Latvia are grateful and happy for all the inner and outer blessings. In our hearts, there is always room for splendid people like you. Welcome to part 1 of our 3-part series, For the Love of Animals, Australia's The Honourable Mark Pearson, Vegetarian.
Warning: you might find the content herein disturbing, but the truth must be revealed.
The Honourable Mark Pearson is a member of the New South Wales Legislative Council, representing the Animal Justice Party, and a Shining World Leadership Award for Compassion Laureate. Prior to assuming his political role, Mr. Pearson served for 22 years as the Executive Director of Australia's non-profit animal rights organisation, Animal Liberation, whose primary focus is protecting farm animals. In addition, Mark worked for 23 years as a clinical acute adult psychiatric nurse specialist. On today's show, Mr. Pearson shares the fascinating story of how he first became involved with animal rights.
A psychic said to me once a long time ago, I was only 22, I think. She was one of the few people I thought might have the power as a psychic. And she said, "Mark, I can see all this blue around you. I can see animals around you. Animals are very powerful. When they come together and are determined, they have enormous power." And then she said, "You're going into Parliament. I can see you in Parliament, and animals are still around you." So I thought, well, that's a lot of nonsense. Well, a lot of dreaming nonsense. And that was when I was 22. And then, before I was going on holiday, I thought I would take a couple of books. So I was at Angus and Robertson bookshop here, and there were a couple of, one book called Save the Animals with Ingrid Newkirk, the authors. And I thought, I'll go and have another look at one about animals. And the other one I found was Betrayal of Trust, which is about animal research experimentation. So I went away on a holiday in Queensland, read these books, was haunted. I thought, my God, I can't believe this is true. Is it true?
Mr. Pearson then decided to conduct some personal research to discover firsthand how animals were being treated in the livestock industry. He began his quest immediately.
So I came back from the holiday and I contacted abattoirs, pig farms, battery chicken farms, and a university to say, look, I've just read this book about how animals are treated in certain situations, and I want to see it for myself. And if you can't show it to me, then I think you might have something to hide, and therefore I'll just believe what I've read, but I want to witness it. So I did. I went to a battery hen facility and saw the birds in the cages, and they tried to argue why this is so-called necessary. saw pigs in a piggery, and I went to two abattoirs. And of course, everything was done perfectly in terms of the highest standard. So the animals were moved slowly and moved in a certain circular way, like Temple Grandin suggests, because then they're less stressed and upset. And then they were stunned before their throats were cut. So all of the protocols were met, but it was a place of violence. And it was violence being enacted upon animals and their lives being taken before they could live the life that they obviously would have rather chosen to live. And even though everything was being done according to proper regulation, there was fear in their eyes. I could smell the blood, and you can smell fear. And they're not stupid. They can hear, all these sounds in an abattoir are frightening, and they're all about death. So I walked out and I said, well, I'm not going to participate in that violence anymore. And I've done my very best most of the time in order to not contribute in any way.
After Mark discovered the immense suffering that farm animals endure, he felt he had to do something to protect them. He then devoted the next 22 years of his life to being the executive director of Animal Liberation, and in 2015 became the first member of the Animal Justice Party to be elected to the New South Wales Parliament. He explains how the Animal Justice Party was formed.
The Animal Justice Party was formed out of a frustration, mainly over two issues: live export and the way we have been slaughtering kangaroos in Australia. So, I've been involved in animal liberation, and many people have been involved in animal protection groups. And the way you get to politicians or get to the key ministers, the pockets of power in Parliament and governance, was really only through demonstrations, letters, meetings, etc. But we thought, particularly I thought, when I was here in Sydney, and there were probably about 4,000 people who gathered at a rally about live export. And when I looked at the people, you expect just everybody to be activists or involved in movements, but I saw lawyers, people doing domestic duties, poor people, barristers, doctors. So the demographics of the people who wish to come together for animals is extraordinarily broad. So it doesn't belong to right, doesn't belong to left, doesn't belong to middle, because most people have had a good interaction with an animal or a concerned interaction with animals. So when all these people were coming together for sheep and cattle, not the beautiful animals of the world or fluffy little dog or cat, a sheep, that struck a chord. And then when we saw the emotional impact of post-traumatic stress on people who had to witness near Canberra all these kangaroos being tranquilised and shot because they were considered to be pests or unwanted, that trauma, psychological trauma of people having witnessed that galvanised us to come together and have a meeting 3 blocks from here of about 15 people from all around Australia, from various groups and backgrounds, to discuss the practicalities and whether it is time for a new voice for animals, and have that voice in the House, in the Parliament, where the governance occurs, which brings laws which either harm animals or can really help them.
Fortunately, Mr. Pearson had a role model to follow. In the European Union, the Honourable Marianne Thieme, co-founder of the Party for the Animals in the Netherlands, had also recently been elected as a Member of Parliament.
Marianne Thieme was elected about 2 years before, first person in the world to be elected to a parliament on the platform of animal protection. I was the second, and she told me in the conference the year before our election here, Mark, you're going to be elected. I said, well, I don't think so, Marianne, there's a bit of work to do yet. But the public, the people of New South Wales, they made a decision. And these are people who are not necessarily vegan or vegetarian or animal activists, but they made a decision that the time has come for animals to have a voice in Parliament. And so they put a 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 in that square, and I got pushed in. So I think historically, it's very important. And there were rumours at the time or comments saying, oh, it's just going to be a one-night sensation. It's a single-issue party. It'll all fall over very quickly. But what Marianne Thieme told me, which is very important, is that 80% around of the decisions which this House, this Parliament makes, has either a direct or an indirect reference to or implication for animals. So that can be health. Obviously, people who have a very high animal fat diet have very serious health problems. So animals come into our health and well-being. Animals come into our education. If we can nurture within a child compassion for an animal, that child will become a wonderful citizen in our society, bringing peace, justice, harmony. Our principle, our foundation is compassion. So the demographics, the veracity and the architecture of the Parliament is shifting to reflect communities' concerns. So if I have to go and vote on an issue which doesn't directly or indirectly relate to animals, then it's very easy to apply the principle of compassion. And I think that makes the Animal Justice Party a rare being, because we're not about competition, one-upmanship, walking over people or whatever. We're here on that platform of consideration and compassion, and that's the principle. And it's refreshing. It's wonderful.
Honorable Mark Pearson, thank you for your diligent efforts to protect our precious animal co-inhabitants. May you be blessed abundantly for your kindness and compassion. Supreme Master Ching Hai gratefully present the Honorable Mark Pearson the Shining World Leadership Award for Compassion with humble gratitude, praise and love in God's mercy. May you be protected as you try to protect the innocents. Supreme Master Ching Hai is deeply grateful to the beloved God for all the financial help, comfort and support to the afflicted and needy and or any good cause over the years, as a humble vessel for hers, neutral term for his or hers, compassion and love toward his precious children. For more information about the Honorable Mark Pearson, please visit markpearson.org.au. Venerable viewers, we appreciate your presence during our program today. Please join us again next Saturday, November 21st for Part 2. Through the grace of the Divine, may love and peace be with you, wherever you may be.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/GG.